Hi everyone, welcome to Module 6. In this module we'll cover best practices. We will take the example we built in Module 4 and we will take the streaming example where we used lambda and kinesis. So it was optional, so I'll quickly remind you what was there in case you didn't watch it. So there we created something like this. So it was a relatively simple architecture. So we have a stream with events, then lambda, our service with the model, reads from these events, reacts to them, and computes the duration of each write here, and it actually gets the model from an S3 bucket. It gets the model, applies the model to the events in the input stream, and then the predictions that it makes, it puts them to the prediction stream. That's a relatively simple service. So we just have two kinesis streams, one lambda function, and an S3 bucket. And we wrote some code for this. So this is the code of the lambda function that is doing this. And yeah, you don't need to go back and watch this video that we did in Module 4. You can just take a look at this code. So now we will take this code and we will cover it with tests. We will add unit tests, we will add integration tests, and in general, we will just work on this code to make it better from the engineering point of view. So let me start with taking this folder and creating a copy. So I don't want to change this one. We will create a copy and we will work on the copy. So I'll make a new folder. I'll call it best practices, and I'll copy what we have from Module 4, which is streaming, and I'll copy it to Module 6. I'll call it, code, and yeah, it should be recursive. Okay, now if I go to here, code, we have the code here, and let me go to Visual Studio Code and open this. I will open this specific folder, not the entire course repo, just this folder. So I don't think we need this README file. I'll just remove it because this is something we used for streaming. Here, I guess we don't need it. I'll create another README file. So I should have just cleaned it. Like all the code I'll use, I'll put this here in the README file. So what do we have here? We have this test.py, which let me just remove it because we'll create a test folder. And yeah, the rest will stay. And yeah, so the plan, what we will do in this video is we will take this and we will see how we can add unit tests to this project. So the first thing we will do is we will actually create the environment. So let me just go and install it. And install. And yeah, we already specify Python version here, so hopefully it should just install what we need. And while it's installing, I'll just go and create a tests folder. So in this folder, we will keep tests. Yeah, I'll create the actual tests a bit later. And now I need to install a library called pytest. This is the library we will use for creating tests. This will be a dev dependency. We only need this dependency for our dev environment. We do not need it for production. So it's pytest. Pip install dev pytest. And it should add this as a dev dependency here. And now it's installing. I want to configure VS Code a little bit so we can run tests from VS Code. If you don't use VS Code, probably for your environment it's similar. And actually it's possible also to run it from the command line. Here I will show you how to configure it from VS Code. So we'll go to extensions and first I'll check the Python extension. Because I am using the remote extension and I want to have the plugin on the remote machine, I need to install it in SSH, so I also have it on the remote machine. I think by default it's installed for local, but not remotely. Okay, we have it. And now I want to configure Python. So for that, I will press Ctrl-Shift-P, and then I will type here Python interpreter. Yeah, so this one, select interpreter. And yeah, so we have quite a few of them, so we need to find the right one. And to do this, we can go here and do pipenv where, I think, or which, I don't remember. No, it's I think it's venv. Right, so it will show us the path to the virtual environment. So this is what we need. So we need to put it here. So it's being Python. Did not work. Okay, now if I do select interpreter, yeah, so this is the interpreter we use now. So it will see what are the packages available for this specific interpreter, and we will have things like auto completion and so on. We can also check the code for some of the things. So for example, we can see what is the code for bottle3, for example. And also we get this thing. You see this testing. So I'll put it here. And here we can configure tests. Now I think everything is installed. Yeah, so we have tests. We should have tests in our environment. Pytest. Yeah, okay, I think the reason we have it actually works. So pytest comes from MLOps pytest from the base environment. So I want to do pip env shell and have pytest here. Test. Yeah, this one. This line becomes very long, so I'll do this thing. Okay, yeah. So if we do which pytest, we have the right one, the one we need. And we can configure it here. So I will click here, configure Python tests, and then it asks which one I want to use. So I want to use pytest, and then it asks which directory contains the test. So this is the tests directory. And now it will probably run. I don't know why it's not picking this up, because the test directory I think is empty. So we need actually to create a first test. And let's check what we can actually test. I think one thing we can test easily is, yeah, so we should test this one, base64 encoding. But before that, maybe this prepare features is something we can easily test. So I will just create model test.py. And then here we need to add init.py to let Python know that tests is a Python package. So we can just do import lambda function, and then yeah, we can import things. So then we can access all the things that are there in the lambda function, and we can write a test. So this test could be test prepare function, prepare features. We need to have some input. So input could be, let's say it's right. Yeah, so this is the right. We need to get the right, and then we need to test that what we get at the end is what we expect. Well, let me get an example from here. I think in this README we should have an example. Yeah, this is an example, or probably this one is an example. So this is the right. Then we put it to this lambda function, and then we get some results. So it's expected actual features. So this is the result that the function returns, and then we want to say that expected features are, so we expect a feature PUDO, which will be 130, 205, right? And then we expect a trip distance feature without any changes, without any modifications. Right, and now we can do assert that we want to make sure that actual features equals to expected features. So that's our test. And now let me, yeah, it was discovered. So let me reload this, reload window. I don't know why there is an error. Okay, yeah, so for some reasons there is an error. Let's go to output and check. And then I think the reason it fails is, yeah, it tries to import this lambda function, right? And then in lambda function tries to download the model, and it cannot find, and that's why it fails. I'm not sure why discovery fails, but let me just quickly hide this, and then I will also comment this, and then we will have something like assert 1 = 1. So it will be a test like that. Okay, now this one was discovered without problems, and we can just run it using this thing. And yeah, 1 is indeed equals 1. And now we need to think how we can actually fix that error. So how can we get rid of this error? And yeah, the problem here is we have this as global variable. So this, while we only want to test this function, there are things that are executed. These things, they get executed when we just try to import lambda function, and they cause problems. So actually this is not really great code that we wrote here. So it has a very long method, it has a very long function, lambda handler, with all this logic. Then it has these global variables with some logic that also may fail if we don't specify this run ID. It doesn't work. Yeah, so we need to somehow fix it. And a way to fix this is to create a special class, which we can call model, and it will contain all this logic. It will initialize itself. Yeah, it will not be executed in our tests, these things. So it will not cause our tests to fail. And in general, our code will be better, more flexible, easier to test. Maybe a little bit more verbose, but we will at least be able to test it. So for that, I will just create a file. I'll call it model.py. And this lambda function will be very simple and stupid. It will just delegate all the execution to this model. So I will now put all this code there to model. And inside this lambda function, we will have something like this. I'll remove everything. And here we will have something like model service. I need to do import model.init. So it will be our service, which we will invoke here. So I'll do return model service lambda handler event. Something like this. Yeah, we have some configuration here that we will also actually need. These things like prediction stream, run ID, test run. So let me import it here as well. So we need OS here. So this will be parameters for our model init method. And I'll create this thing here. So I'll call it init. The things we need here are prediction stream name, run ID, and test run. Prediction stream name, run ID, and test run. Maybe I'll add annotations here. So this is a string, this is a string, and this one is bool. And here, let me put it at the end. What this thing will do, it will create, we'll create a class first here. I'll call this class model service, which will have a method that we use here, lambda handler. So def lambda handler, this is a model, and then it will get an event, right? Then I'll just put all these things here. Then yeah, we will fix, I'll just comment for now, we will fix this later. Then yeah, this prepare features and predict, this should also be methods of this service, of this class. So I'll put them here. And yeah, because they are methods, the first parameter should be self. And then this model will be filled in this class. So I'll create the init method. So it will contain the model. So model equals model. And then yeah, it should be self model, right? And then these prepare features and predict we will use these two methods. Okay, now we need to initialize this. So I will for now comment this Kinesis client. We will come back to this later. And now all we care right now is, yeah, we just need to create a model service, right? Model service, this one, and this one needs a model. So we need to load a model, something like load model, and for that we need run ID. So let me write this load model with run ID, and I think I removed this from here. So let me just go to GitHub and I'll take it from here. So this piece of code is what we need. Run ID, so return model. So we have this and we return model service. Yeah, we can quickly check it to make sure it's still working. For that, we can just run this inside Docker. and then use this test docker script that we have to test if things still work. So to build this, docker build -t, I don't remember the tag we gave it. So this one, yeah, I'll copy this and let me call it v2. So yeah, I'll just execute that. Wait, I need to change Docker file. So in addition to lambda function, now we have this new thing, model.py, which we also need to copy. And by the way, let me check that actually, yeah, I forgot to pass this thing, prediction. Oh, it would fail if I don't do this. I think that should work. Yeah, let's build the image. Yeah, this thing. And we can test it. So I will take this code that we created previously and change it slightly. It will be, yeah, this is the only change we need. And yeah, I can just, let me go to this code and then I will do test docker. Let's see if it works. It is still working, it's not falling apart, which is a good thing. Even though the change we did was quite big, quite large. We rearranged things here. And now let's come back to the test we had. So now actually we need to, instead of importing lambda function, we'll import model. And then here we will do model. So model service will be model service. For now, let's just put none here. We don't care about the actual model here. We're only checking this prepare features method, and then we will test it like that, and we will remove this assert. So let me execute this. Yeah, it is still passing. So maybe let me modify it a little bit to make sure that the test actually is run. Yeah, you see now it fails because we are getting something that we do not expect. So we say we expect this one, but we're getting actually something else. So let me change back. Now rerun it. Yeah, things work. Yeah, that was the obvious thing we can test. I also wanted to test, let me close this. I also wanted to test this piece of logic, right? So doing base 64 decoding and then loading data. Seems like something like things might go wrong here. So I want to make sure that this code actually works. So for that, I'll create a function. I'll call it base 64 decode, and it will be pro text here, or how do we call it? Encoded data. And I will just get this thing here and return write event. So it will be write event equals this one, encoded data. And yeah, this should still be working. We just extracted this logic into a function, and now we can separately test this function. So create another test. So I'll call it base 64. Actually, we can just keep it here. So I'll do test base 64. How it's called? Decode. Let me close all this. Base 64 decode, and then I'll get this thing from here, data, and I'll put it here, or it's input base 64 input, and then we do model base 64 decode. So we put this thing here, and this is our actual result, and our expected result is, it should be something like this, right? But also with write ID. So let me copy it from here. I think it should be this one. And we again do assert that actual result equals expected result. And we can run it. So yeah, it's probably the thing we used there is slightly different. So it's 2, 5, 6. That's the only thing that is different right? So let me execute this. Okay, now it is fine. So we have another test. Yeah, actually we can run this test from command line as well. So let me show you how to do this. I'll do this from the shell. So pipn shell, or maybe I do it pipn run pytest. I think I need to say the location like that. So this is we run the test, and it did some discovery. So it discovered tests in this model underscore test, and we have 2 dots here, meaning that 2 tests were run and 2 of them passed. So let's see what we can test here. So we can test this thing here, predict. So let's do this. Let's see how we can test this thing here. So do test predict, and we will create, I'll just copy this thing, because in predict we actually pass features. So in predict we need this one, so this would be our features. Predict, and yeah, we pass the features. But here we do not have model, and we also cannot load the model from S3. This unit test should be as independent as possible, and they should be fast. So we don't want to go to S3, we don't want to download the model. Yeah, we don't want to do any of that. So we can create, instead of actually going there and downloading the model from S3 and using MLflow for that, we can just simply create a model class ourselves. We can call it model mock. And mock here means like an object that looks like an actual thing, but it's not. It's just something that we use for test purposes only. And then here we can have this, we use the predict method, so it should follow the same signature, so it should have the same methods. And predict, and what does it have? I think it has this X, the feature matrix. And then we can just check what is the length of this X. This will be our the size of what we return, and then our model will return, I don't know, 10. It will predict 10 for everything. So it will return a list filled with 10 for every row of this matrix. Yeah, pretty simple, stupid model. Maybe instead of writing 10 here, instead of hardcoding 10, we can make it a parameter. So the parameter can be like value. So it will be self value equals value, and then this is the value we will output here. So I'll create a model here, model mock. So the value will be, let's say, 10. So now when we invoke this actual prediction, so the expected prediction should be 10, because this is what we put here as the value. And now let's run assert to make sure that we get what we expect. So I just click here, and it's not working for some reasons. Yeah, because I am overwriting here the model thing. We have a module called model, and then here we have a model called model. So I'll call it model mock maybe. And yeah, I also forgot to put it here. So let me execute it, and now it's working. Good. And one last thing we want to test is, maybe actually we want to test the whole thing here, this lambda handler. And so we want to test that it works. Actually, here's a mistake, right? It should be run ID. So run ID. So we need to put run ID here, or maybe I'll call it model version, then self model version equals model version, and then we will put it here. Yeah, so we want to check that actually this thing is returned at the end. So we will call this test lambda handler. Test lambda handler. So it will be like, let me copy this thing. So we have service here, and this service now actually, yeah, it needs model version. So I'll make it a default parameter, so I don't need to rewrite other tests. But here we'll have model version, something like, I don't know, test 1, 2, 3. The thing we are testing is lambda handler, so event and I'll take the event from here. So this is a big complex event. So I'll take this, I'll put this to our test. I'll simplify it a little bit because we don't need most of this stuff. So we just need this data, and that's actually all we need, right? And I'll change the code a little bit. Okay, like that. This is a long thing, but okay. Yeah, now we get this actual predictions. So it's actually plural, and expected predictions would be, so it's actually, it should be a dictionary. In this dictionary we have this predictions object, and this is a list, and in this list we have this thing. I'll copy it. So model version will be test 1, 2, 3. I'll just copy it here. Model version, right duration, it's 10, right? So this is the prediction. Right ID, I don't remember. This should be this one. Okay, I don't know if it will work. Let's check. Cool, all tests work. And yeah, we can run the whole thing at once. So we have 4 tests now. And I think we covered pretty much everything, except this thing, I guess. So here we have this thing, put record, which we don't really want to test here. But if we uncomment this, it means that we need to pass to our model service a lot of things. Like it now all of a sudden needs to know about Kinesis client, it needs to know about the name of the stream, all these things. What we can do to make it a bit nicer is just remove this. I'll put it here, not to lose the code, and have a thing called callbacks. So callbacks will be things that will be invoked after each prediction. Putting something to Kinesis stream will be one of the callbacks. So by default it will be none, and yeah, if it's none, then if callbacks is none, then we will initialize it. Self callbacks, we will initialize it with an empty list. Otherwise we will just use callbacks. And there is actually a shortcut for that. So I can say callbacks or empty list, which is the shortcut for this thing. Yeah, so if this one is null, then it will just go with the next thing, which will be empty list. I can quickly show you how it works. So I'll open IPython. Let's say callbacks is none, and then if I do callbacks or empty list, then I get an empty list. Okay, and here we will just go over callbacks for callback, and we will just invoke callback on the prediction event. And now our tests should still all run, because it has a default value of none. So then it will be just not doing anything here. But to make it work, we need to adjust this one slightly. So what we need to do is to add this if not test run. And then here we would initialize this thing. So I'll just create an empty list, callbacks. And if not test run, then we need to create Kinesis client, and we have code for that. Let me just get it from here. So this one, and then prediction stream would be this one, and it feels like I need to create another object. So I'll call it class. I'll call it Kinesis callback maybe. And then it will have this init. So we'll initialize it with Kinesis client. And then we will have a method which I'll call putRecord prediction event. And then here in the prediction event, we kind of know that one of the things there is a right ID. So we need to return it. So it's prediction right ID. Yeah, so this is right ID, and then we just invoke this thing. So it will be self Kinesis client. Then yeah, we need prediction stream name. So it will be again self prediction stream name. And then, yeah, so now this thing is kind of self-contained and we can just create it here. I'll call it Kinesis callback. And here we need to pass Kinesis client and prediction stream name. And our callback will need, our list of callbacks will need to contain this. So it will be put record. So we pass a reference to the method and then it will be, where it is, it will be run here. Here. So it will be one of these callbacks. The code should be fully functional as before, and we covered it with tests. So now we can actually run tests, and every time we change something, now we can be sure that our code still works. But here, this code, these tests, they test only individual pieces of our code. So individual methods, individual functions. That's why they are called unit tests, because they are testing only small unit of our code. So which are usually like relatively small things. But we want to test the whole thing to have some sort of end-to-end test to make sure that when we run this, it works as a whole. That's why we have another kind of tests. It's called integration tests, and this is what we will cover next in the next video. So we have this test docker, and we will take this one and we will turn this into an integration test, and we can run this test continuously to make sure that our code still works, our service still works. So see you soon.